Hey everybody. So there is one team off to a really, really hot start this season that I haven't really talked about at all yet, and that is the Buffalo Sabres. Now, before we get into the video, I just want to remind everyone to please hit that like button and give this video a thumbs up. That greatly helps out the channel. And if you're new to the channel or not yet a subscriber for any reason, please hit that subscribe button and follow along for all my hockey content this season and all year round. So I haven't talked about the Buffalo Sabres really at all yet, and they are a team 9-2-1 to start this season, first place in the Atlantic Division. Really, really good start for Buffalo, and they're a team that I thought was going to stink this year. And people are already in the comments talking about how I thought Buffalo was going to be terrible. I'm not falling into that trap again because last year, Buffalo it was a very similar situation last year. Buffalo wasn't quite this good to start the season, but the Sabres had a good first 2 months of the season last year as well. And early in the year, they had a 10-game winning streak. And after that 10-game winning streak, I was all in on Buffalo. I did a video on November 24th of last year, 2018, saying that the Buffalo Sabres were for real and that they were going to make the playoffs and they were showing huge signs of improvement. And what happened? They puked all over themselves in the second half of the season, ended up missing the playoffs by like 20 points. It wasn't even close, and went back to being a bottom-of-the-league Buffalo Sabres team like we've seen for the past decade. It's only October. It's only October. Is Buffalo's start good? Yes, it's fantastic. 9-2-1. They are with the best in the league right now, without a doubt. It's October. They haven't won anything yet. They haven't made the playoffs yet. They haven't won a playoff game yet. They haven't done anything except win 9 games. And they did this last year where they were really darn good to start the season, and they were solidly in a playoff spot. And even in November, they looked really good last year, and then they completely fell off the wagon and went back to being the Buffalo Sabres. I'm not saying Buffalo's going to necessarily do that again, but I think it's a possibility. It's a very real possibility, and they haven't done anything in recent years to make me think otherwise. They haven't made the playoffs since 2011. Why is this year going to be any different? I'm not hyping up the Sabres early in the season the way that I did last year just to have them do what they did last year again. So, listen, they're off to a great start. They're a team I'm going to watch and keep an eye on, but I want to see where they are in the standings at Thanksgiving. I want to see where they are at Christmas, once we turn the new year. If Buffalo's still in the top 3 in the Atlantic come New Year's, then I'll really start being like, wow, all right, this team is proving me very, very wrong. We're only 12 games in. They've got 70 games left. It's a long, long way to go. So, yes, Buffalo's off to a good start, but they haven't proven anything yet. And I think that this coming month, the month of November, looking at Buffalo's schedule, is going to really show us what kind of team they are. If this team is for real, if this team is legit and can play with the big boys in the NHL, then they need to have a good month of November because they have a very, very tough schedule, and we're going to look at that right now. The month of November for the Sabres, they start out on November 1st, Friday night, playing at Washington against the Washington Capitals. Washington's also had a very, very strong start to this season. That's going to be no easy feat to go into Washington and win there. Then they play the next night at home against the New York Islanders. So it's a back-to-back with travel in between. And the Islanders have honestly been better to start this season than I thought they were going to be. Then they have 5 days off, and they head overseas for the NHL Global Series, where they have back-to-back games in Europe against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yes, division rival, one of the better teams in the league, the Tampa Bay Lightning, back-to-back on the 8th and 9th. Then they come back from the Global Series. They've got 4 days off, and they play Carolina at home, but still, Carolina's had a very hot start to this season as well. Then they play the Ottawa Senators. That's kind of a throwaway game. They certainly should win that one. Then they go to Chicago. Chicago's not had a great start. Again, a lot of travel involved here. They go to Chicago the next day after playing Ottawa at home, and then they go back home to play Minnesota. It's a very weird schedule as well for Buffalo in November. They play Minnesota at home. Now, Minnesota stinks this year, so that's another game that they certainly should win. But then they have a game at Boston. Then they go on a Florida trip at Florida and at Tampa Bay. So 3 division games in a row, all on the road, starting November 21st through November 25th, including back-to-backs in Florida. That's not going to be easy. Then they come back home. They play Calgary at home. Then they have a back-to-back home-and-home with the Toronto Maple Leafs to end the month. Yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are in their division, very difficult opponent. And they play at home the first game, and then they have to travel to Toronto and play in Toronto the second night. That's no easy feat either. So we're going to find out who the Buffalo Sabres really are in the month of November, because this is not an easy schedule. This is going to be a difficult month for them. If they can hang in there with teams like Tampa Bay and Toronto and Boston, playing divisional opponents, some of them twice. They have 2 against Toronto and 2 against Tampa Bay. If they can hang in there with those teams, then I'm really going to start to change my mind about the Buffalo Sabres. But so far, they haven't really played that tough of a schedule to this point. And they've certainly played well, and they've done a really good job winning 9 of their first 12 games, obviously. But they haven't played Tampa Bay yet. They haven't played Toronto yet. They haven't played Boston yet. They haven't played the Washington Capitals yet. They did play Pittsburgh once and win that game, but they've got other really good teams in the Eastern Conference that they see a lot more later in the season. That they see in the month of November, that I think is going to be a much tougher test for Buffalo than what they've already been tested with so far this year. So again, Buffalo's start has been fantastic. I'm not trying to take anything away from that. I'm just reluctant to say that, they've done anything when it's still only October. It's still the first month of the season. Can we calm down? Let's see them do this over a sustained period of time. Because last year, they ripped off 10 in a row. They ripped off 10 in a row last season. They looked fantastic. I thought they were going to the playoffs. I was like, the Buffalo Sabres have finally arrived. And the second half of the year, they puked all over themselves. And they were awful. What's to say that that's not going to happen again? Let's calm down with the Buffalo's this great team now because they've had a good month. Let's have a good 6 months. Let's have a good season where you're in the playoff spot for most of the season. Let's see Buffalo make the playoffs. They haven't done it in almost 10 years. I'd love to see them in the postseason, but they haven't done anything yet, except they've won 9 games. You got to win 40-something to make the playoffs. So they've still got a long way to go. There's still 70 games left for them. And in the month of November is no joke. They could, if they can really prove themselves in the month of November, or they can go right back to being a 500, sink their record right back to 500 in the month of November with some of these teams that they're playing with, Carolina, Washington, the Lightning twice, Toronto twice, Boston. No, the Lightning 3 times. They got the Global Series back-to-back, and then the Lightning again on the Florida trip at the end of the year. They play Tampa Bay 3 times this month. That's not easy. They play Boston, they play Florida. This is not an easy schedule this month for the Sabres, and we're really going to find out what kind of team this is. If they hang in there through November, I'm going to, then Buffalo may be for real and may be a legit playoff threat in the Eastern Conference. If they get knocked around by their divisional opponents and fall back to close to a 500 record, I think, we're back to Buffalo being Buffalo. So we'll have to wait and see how this month goes. But the month of November is a very, very difficult one for the Sabres and a very important one for the Sabres. If they can, they can really prove themselves in November, or they can really just fall off and go back to being a middling 500 team. And, we're going to have to see which way it goes for them. But early in the season, the month of November is definitely a big one for Buffalo. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.